At 8 p.m. this evening. As you see, it's 9:37, and we are finally here. The very wonderful, generous Zoe Warren has helped me get this thing straight because we've just spent the last hour and a half. I've wasted an hour and a half with this guy of his time, and he has got me straightened out. So I hope everybody can hear us good. If anybody does happen to jump in the chat, let us know that the sound is coming through. So without further ado, good evening, sir. How are you?
Good evening to you, brother. It's never a waste of time actually hanging out with you. So
Man, that's awesome. That's awesome. We live too far away, but I do want to share this with everybody out there that when I first started this live stream, this was eventually where I wanted to get to, and the first person that I ever wanted to do a split screen with was this man right here, and he's graciously taken his time out tonight to do this and help me get everything straight. So I can't thank you enough, sir. So. What I want to do is I want you to just talk for a minute, tell our audience who you are, tell them about the great things that you've done and what you're doing in South Carolina.
well, real quick, is it possible before we do that? Where are we streaming to so I can share it with some of my folks too?
Okay, that's perfect.
YouTube?
Absolutely.
Okay, I'm gonna just do that real quick too.
Sure.
You can join us. Maybe we can have a food fight online.
Right. I will make sure everything looks like. I'm gonna just check real quick and make sure that our sound is going out.
Right.
Oh, it's crystal clear. Crystal clear. So.
Right. So I just shared your YouTube small town Argon 238 there.
Cool.
I know that's loud on your side.
And you can hear me just fine, right?
I hear you just fine.
Good, good,
There
good.
you are. Nice. We just started. Yeah. So I'm gonna put it on the Facebook for you, see. But
Okay. Ah, yeah, I've got to change mine. Yeah, ever since that I've gotten, ever since that I got restricted, every
mhm.
live stream it doesn't show as public. I got to go in and manually change it. Can you believe that?
Okay. Yeah.
It's ridiculous. Whoop. There it is. All right. We'll go ahead and get this in a few groups as well. So maybe there might be some people up this time of the night.
Yeah. This is great though. We worked so hard. We want to make sure we get on. Yeah.
That's right. That's right. Amen.
Let's see here. That post. There we go. Save. First screen of the show. Yeah.
That's right.
So I'm gonna also share on my Twitter page. But, it's really how it works with technology and stuff too. There's always this like you get jumped in.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And then you can't really leave actually. I mean, at least you can get jumped out of gangs. If you get in on technology, you really can't get out.
Right. It's pretty wild, man. Like, and I'm not that tech savvy, but and I work a whole lot, and so this is I don't devote the time that I need to devote to this stuff, and so it's like every time I have to double and triple check, and it's a nightmare sometimes. So,
Yeah.
but here we are.
All right. I can start now.
Yes, sir.
Sure.
Go ahead.
Well, my name is Zoe Warren. I host a program for the New American magazine called Two A Food Day. You guys can Google Two A Food Day and ZOE, my name is Zoe, and the show will come up. Or you can go to newamerican.com and you can click the video tab and you'll see my ugly mug. And there's a whole lot of videos there for the last few years. I'm a constitutionalist. I'm not really a gun guy. I don't have a lot of guns. I don't know a lot about a lot of different types of guns, but I love the law and the overreach of our opponents, try to figure out a way to reverse engineer that BS.
Right.
Because oftentimes it's just like sewage and it just keeps coming up and coming up. And you hire these Republicans to fix your plumbing and they don't. They give you a bill.
Mm-hmm.
They expect you just to go along with it. So, I need to make sure that we're ready to hue and cry when garbage is coming down the pipe because it'll be all over our life if we don't stop it. So,
Absolutely.
um, I also work with a group called the Center for Self Governance. We're working really diligently to stop the political weaponization of labels and government.
Right.
What does that mean? So, I mean, that's a lot of words. Essentially, right now, there's a move in America to try to get everybody categorized as white supremacists.
Yeah.
Even black folks like me have internalized white supremacy. If I was Indian or Asian, they would say I'm white adjacent.
Mm-hmm.
If I'm Mexican, they'll say I'm the new face of white supremacy.
Right.
Why? Because they're justifying, like, categorizing extremists that are white, that are religious like Christians, as domestic terrorists and domestic violent extremists, and they use those terms interchangeably.
Mm-hmm.
So we've been doing our best to stop the process of getting people into the category of enemy of the state without any kind of judicial review. What's happening is there's groups like STLC, ADL, NGOs like that, nonprofits that are labeling us X because we believe Y. And so the key is they can get us labeled under their categorization, then our law enforcement will take cues from them.
Mm-hmm.
Not because our legislatures or our Congress told them to, or even called us those names and defined us that way, or even created any kind of criminal statute concerning us. But they categorize us that way, like extremists, because they put it in the lexicon of the FBI in 2009.
Right.
Like you remember the Bundys and all those guys out there in Utah and Nevada and Oregon and stuff like that.
Yes. The
Well,
Bundy.
they use
Is it
yeah,
the
they use
Bundy
that
Ranch?
the Bundy Ranch
Mm-hmm.
standoff, and then after that, the Malachir Refuge occupation. They try to use those as the continuation of Ruby Ridge, the continuation of what's the Kansas City, um, the guy who drove the vehicle with the fertilizer into it.
Oh, Timothy McVeigh.
Yeah,
Yeah,
Timothy McVeigh.
Oklahoma. Yeah, the Oklahoma
Continuation
bombing.
of Oklahoma. Yeah, continuation of those types of extremist activities. But they want to categorize anybody who believes that the federal government doesn't have the power to do whatever the heck it wants to do to anybody who wants to do it as anti-government extremists.
Right.
Because then you can use the domestic terrorist statutes on us.
Mm-hmm.
What does that mean? That means that they can surveil you, they can detain you indefinitely. Like if you get a terrorist, you think they're a domestic terrorist, they have a connection to a domestic terror organization that looks that way. You don't let them back on the streets out on bail.
Mm-hmm.
So they can categorize me or you or anybody else as domestic violent extremists and use domestic terror tools on you. Then they don't have to let you out of jail while you're in court. They
Right.
can make you broke where you'll plea out and they can keep their 93 to 97% successful prosecution rate.
Right.
Because you're just like, I'm going to get out of here.
Right.
I'll take the plea deal.
Absolutely.
Right? That's
It's
what we're
true.
working on. So,
And you also ran for lieutenant governor, right, last term?
yeah.
And tell us a little bit about that.
Sure. I was asked to run for lieutenant governor alongside of Harrison Musselwhite. We got to travel the whole state and meet a bunch of folks that are just like us, just love America, law abiding, love our Constitution, love the American Republic, love the strict separation of powers, love to have their sovereignty, their rights. There are things that the government should not be doing, and they want to take back their power and stop the government from trespassing those areas. And so the government thinks it can do whatever it wants. And so we met a bunch of folks who, like us, don't want the government doing some things. And
Right.
it
You're
was
absolutely
great.
right.
It's amazing.
Yeah, that's where we met. In fact, just a little background, I'm up here, of course, in Georgia, and there was a really good like rally that was put on. It's been about what 2 years ago now, I believe,
Yeah.
and we've been there all day. There was all sorts of people there. There were people there about the vaccines. There's people. Garland Favorito was there from Voter Georgia, and the day just went on and on and on. There were so many good speakers. I believe Candace Taylor was there, and then toward the end, Um, didn't even know that you were going to get up and speak, and you started setting up. I think your son was there, and you guys, and there was a handful of us that was left, and your speech should have. I mean, it moved me. It should have been at the very beginning of the entire thing, and we could have just went home, like a good church service. I'm telling you, and then we talked throughout the evening, and just you made an impact on me. And then we've talked a couple of times, over the phone. And I know we're both busy people, but no kidding, man, you were the first person that entered my head to do this live stream with, because you're such a great activist for the state, and you're level headed. And we've talked about all kinds of stuff before,
Yeah.
but is
Thanks for the encouragement,
well,
man.
I mean, I'm just being honest, man. Like you're one of the people that I'm always following, always checking out, always trying to support, because you got such a, like, you're just so logical about everything, and we appreciate it. I wish we had 500 more people like you,
Oh,
because
man.
as no doubt you no doubt know, our state is in a lot of turmoil right now. We just did the fourth indictment on Donald Trump, and our governor's turned out to be a real piece of work, and apparently the whole election cycle, is based on our 159 counties of good old Dominion voting system. So
Yeah.
it's a little crazy right now, but
Yeah.
I think it's woken a lot of people up. A lot of people are just really getting involved in these grassroots movements, and it's good to see. It keeps
Yeah.
me going.
I saw a bunch of folks in Atlanta though, man. Like folks that I would not have expected out there on the streets welcoming Donald Trump in, waving and recording video and shouting for Trump.
Hmm.
I'm like, I
Oh
think
yeah.
Trump might get invited to the barbecue. He might get
Right,
invited to the picnic,
exactly.
to
It's
the
true.
cookout.
It's true. I mean, he already had a lot of black supporters and a lot of Latino supporters, Hispanic support. I mean, and now you're talking about doubling that, if not even tripling it. I mean, people are seeing through this complete sham that is going on here. I mean, obviously, and we all know that Trump is no messiah. I mean, everybody knows Trump is just a man. He was a good president. But if you look at how hard that they are fighting to keep this man out of office, it's really disturbing.
It's
Yeah.
the unequal application of justice and
Hmm.
law. I mean, most folks realize that they're like, man, listen, we still don't know the names of the people on Epstein's client list.
Yeah. Absolutely.
And they are indicting Donald Trump for questioning elections like every other politician in recorded history
Hmm.
has
Yeah. You couldn't be more right. Isn't that crazy when you think about that? Really, how upside down this entire world is. I mean, I can't make sense of it, to be honest with you. And we fight daily on these things, but you would think that more people would get it. But it's how can it not be some sort of corroborated, mass, like all these people are getting paid off. I mean, you look at the mainstream news pundits, and you watch the news and the controlled media narrative, and that those people, they went to college. I didn't even go to college. I mean, like, they're smart. They understand. They know better.
Yeah,
But it's like they're just going to go along with the playbook, man. They're just getting
yeah.
paid, and they're, never seen anything like it. So,
Well, it's human nature. It's really human nature. A lot of the folks don't have the principles we have. They just got plans,
right.
and their plans are just to make a name for themselves, build a future, survive. All the things are just basically human nature, and not the higher nature, the divine nature. Nothing higher. Like we got a higher. If you believe in a higher power, you believe in Jesus. I believe in Jesus. Okay, but
Absolutely.
if you believe in a higher power, you obviously will believe that what goes around comes around,
Hmm.
karma, all those different ideas. I believe God has given us a specific set of rules, not because He just wants to limit us, but He's like, if you sow this way, I'm going to punish people who do that. I
Right.
don't want you to get punished, okay? Because the people who do that, that's all they do.
Hmm.
And if you follow along with them, then you're going to get punished. So I'm saying all that to say that people are sowing and they're going to reap,
Hmm.
but our opponents, they don't care about that.
Right.
We care about that. Our opponents don't. And
Hmm.
so they are working diligently, taking advantage of human nature so that they can continue to advance their agenda. That's why they use hypocrisy. It's not really a big deal to them. Hypocrisy for them is a strategy.
Mhm.
They don't
Well,
care if
you're
they call
right.
hypocrites. They use it as strategy. They're like, well, that was pretty good. Yeah.
Yeah,
They
right.
believe you.
It's crazy. It's crazy to me.
Yeah,
We're
so because they're taking advantage of human nature, they'll do it to us too. They'll do it to, like, for instance, Republicans. I'll give you an example. I'm a Republican. I love the Republican Party. But most of my fellow Republicans, 80% of them don't even know what system of government we have.
hmm
If I was to ask a group of 100, and they have no education, they'd say democracy. If they have a little bit, they'll say republic. They have high level, they watch Tucker Carlson and conservative podcasts and Mark Levin. They'll say we're a constitutional republic, and I'll say, oh yeah, yeah. So we're like North Korea because they're a constitutional republic. I mean,
right.
what does that mean? See, our system is designed with very strict separation of powers, a federal system at the national level, a federal system at the state level, then a whole section of self governance just for us,
hmm
right? That
Right.
the government should not be touching. It's for us to do.
Right.
There is no other system in the history of the world designed like ours. And if we don't know what our system is supposed to look like, we won't know how to fix it.
hmm
And so our opponents, they know what our system looks like because they're fighting to destroy it. They
Right.
groom their people to understand how our system's designed so they can dismantle it.
hmm
Whereas Republicans, it's like we watch Kung Fu on TV and we get on the streets and take a Kung Fu pose. We think we know what we're doing. We don't get trained. And I'm not trying to like knock everybody as much as I'm saying like we have not diligently put together a program where we can train Republicans to understand how the system works and become mechanics of it and
hmm
fix it.
Right.
And so our opponents have giant growths like this administrative state, this bureaucracy. They've grown on the side of the system. I don't know if you've ever seen that movie Basket Case
Yeah.
back in like the '80s. It's a little guy that had a little growth on the side.
Uh-huh.
That's what we got. That's what our bureaucracies are.
Right.
Giant growths.
Mm.
Okay. Our system is set up with distinct separation of powers, right?
Right. Right.
Judicial, legislative, executive. They shouldn't be blurred. They shouldn't be. They're judicial. They shouldn't be legislating, right? That's,
hmm
that's how it's supposed to work.
Absolutely.
Executives shouldn't be writing laws.
Right.
However, in our bureaucracy, they write policies on the force of law at the ATF and the FBI and the BLM and the DOJ. They enforce the policies they create. So that's legislative and executive.
hmm
And if you have a problem with how they did stuff, you can't go to court until you use their appeal process. So they got the judicial branch too. They
Mm.
got all three layers of government wrapped up into one before you can get any justice.
Wow. Yeah. I mean, you're right. I mean,
It's a tragedy.
it really is. It's hard to wrap your mind around, and you're right. Even people like me, I've always was kind of like, I grew up playing in bands and just I just grew up more of a liberal. I always lived a kind of conservative house, but I kind of figured things out on my own. But when I got into hot and heavy about this, it was like this establishment of kind of this good old boy mentality where they had their corner desk office and as long though they were holding this line and basically you could go over and you can do whatever you want over here as long as you didn't cross this line. And gradually this line started getting crossed and it was like the Republicans seemed to just back up and back up and back up. And so we all kind of, especially back in like 2017, 2018, when everybody started waking up to these draconian gun laws. And I'm kind of the same way as you. Like I grew up, I had, 22 and a BB rifle, but I was never really big into guns, It's more about the principle of the Constitution. But it seems like we just kind of were asleep and it's like, well, as long as this stuff didn't affect me and well, we've got this Republican here, they're gonna hold the line. And now look where we're at, and we realize that all this was just a big game, the wings of the same bird, and so we've kind of woke up to this grassroots movement, like where people like you and me are talking. We're trying to say, hey, we need to stop this because it's getting out of control,
Yeah.
and now it's like we're being blamed for turning the Republican Party upside down. I know in this state, but it's like, are you kidding me? Like how you cannot win by continuing to do this stuff and give up these things,
They don't mind being bastards. They don't mind being like, because their idea is, I'm next.
Mm-hmm.
Like like the whole presidential thing, right? We don't really elect presidents. Donald Trump was probably the first president elected since Ronald Reagan.
Sure,
You know what
sure.
I'm saying? All the rest of them were selected,
And they, yeah,
and they
they
were
even admit
chosen.
that. You know, I think it was Donna Brazil the other day admitted that. You know, but
Yeah,
I
yeah.
I don't
So,
know. Go ahead.
well, they don't mind being vassals, though. They don't mind like being making us serfs, selling our liberties so they can maintain their aristocracies.
Mm-hmm.
I understand that we don't really have a democracy. We have more like a um, managed oligarchy. You know,
Mm-hmm.
because democracy sucks. Democracy is fall apart. 50
It's
plus one. I mean, listen. I don't care about your democracy. I'm a threat to your democracy. Okay, because if I go to court, I don't want you democratically deciding whether or not I'm guilty. I
right,
want a
like mob
unanimous
rule.
jury. Okay, I
Mm-hmm.
don't. We don't do a democracy in the judicial branch. We don't do a democracy really even when we write laws and get them passed. It's got to be
Mm-hmm.
super majorities, right?
Right.
And so we're not really a democracy. And people are trying to create one out of us.
Right.
But because we have kind of a managed oligarchy, people want to become like in that oligarchy and become an aristocracy
Right.
where they
Right.
don't ever leave
Mm-hmm.
and they can be like 95 years old.
Yeah.
They have to have a power of attorney. They're almost like meat puppets
Uh-huh.
shuffling around to try to talk on the microphone and freezing up. People having to raise the hand for them to vote. I mean, it's
It
ridiculous
is.
because they want to be an aristocracy.
Now look at Fetterman. I mean, are you kidding me? That's
And he's the
insane.
youngest of them. He's the
He's the
youngest of
youngest.
them.
We elected, and no, I'm not making fun of him. They elected a stroke victim to in office. I mean, he can't even comprehend what he's doing. But look at
But
Mitch
well,
McConnell, second
yeah,
freeze up. You know, Dianne
Mitch
Feinstein.
Einstein,
Yeah. Oh, and then of course Joe Biden. I mean, the leader, the leader of the
Joe
free
Biden,
world. Can you
Maxine Waters.
imagine what these other countries are? I mean, could you imagine what Russia and China and Thailand, all these people think when they turn on the TV and look at Joe Biden? I can't even imagine it. We have to be the laughing stock of this world right now.
But that's why they respected Donald Trump.
Absolutely.
What they see in Joe Biden is what they saw in Obama.
Hmm.
Even though Joe Biden's a potato, Obama was kind of eloquent, so Biden. But it's the same thing. It was just the executive office of the president running the presidency.
Hmm.
Is the administrative state running the country and not the elected. So they're like, okay, we're back to where we left off, where the Council on Foreign Relations, the Bilderberger Group, and all these different regional structures are back in control.
Absolutely. I think you're 100% right. I've tried to explain this to people because some people, when you start talking about Trump, they automatically think you're like a MAGA, you know. I'm like, no, look, I've criticized the man before, but if you can't clearly see that there's an agenda here at play and that Donald Trump put a big thorn in that agenda side to the point where they had to shut down this entire world, okay? And that should just ring out like red flag bells to everybody because that's what really happened. An outsider came in and said, we're not going to do this. We're going to try to fix this country. And they freaked out. Okay, that's really what happened. And that's why they're fighting against this man so hard right now. It's not about Trump, it's about what Trump stands for, it's about what Trump's going to do for this country that they don't want to do. They want to depopulate us, they want to get us out of the way, they want to turn us into slavery. You know, we're already there with the monetary system. I mean, it's insane, really.
They do. They want to make us serfs, man.
Absolutely.
I mean, it's pretty obvious. I mean, we've been serfs for a long time right now. Property
Yes.
taxes are a good example. If you don't pay your property taxes, if you lose your property, I mean,
Mm-hmm.
that's not freedom.
No.
There's I understand that we have things we have to pay for as a group and all that stuff, but at the basic, the fundamentals of like good government are gone. So
Right.
we're being robbed
Oh,
to
yes.
fund a criminal enterprise masquerading as a government.
Mm-hmm. You're absolutely right. And you think about the tax system. I know a lot of people are sharing this, but when you really follow a tax on how many times that something gets taxed over and over and over again, and we're still have a deficit, and I can't fathom how we've been able to send what right now about $131 billion to Ukraine for a proxy war. I can't even fathom how did he even how was he they how was the government even able to send this money? I thought Congress had the appropriations. I thought they held the checkbook, you know. It's mind-boggling to me. And the travesty on Maui, we've all been watching that unfold, and our president decides that in one day, well, we're going to give you a one-time $700 payment, but we want 125 more million to send over Ukraine, and it's just like how there none of this is sustainable, none of it.
Yeah, it's the strategy though. I was talking to a woman in Walmart, and sometimes I just walk up to strangers randomly and like drop some knowledge on them.
Right, right. There
Just
you
'cause
go.
it's fun, And as I'm making the statement to her about, I don't remember what I was saying specifically now. But her response is what I remember. As I'm dropping this knowledge on her, and I'm explaining how they don't really want to fix things. She
Right.
was like, "You're right," and this is a black woman, right? And I'm thinking she's black, maybe she's Democrat, because I'm also racist, I guess. I'm a white
Oh,
supremacist.
good lord.
So she's black, she's a Democrat, so I'm saying this to her, trying to get a response, and she's like, "Yeah, well, the goal is really just to crash the American system."
Hmm.
And I was like,
That's exactly.
"Really, you're in my mind."
Yeah, there you
That's what
go.
it is.
It's so obvious now, and they're not even trying to hide this anymore, man. They're not even trying to hide it. It's like it's out in the open. We've seen the World Economic Forum videos. We've seen Klaus Schwab. We've seen all these things. Nobody's even trying to hide it anymore. Our government, for crying out loud, they don't even care. Oh, it's
Well,
very.
they're working for the World Economic Forum. Like even our governors, like, and especially yours,
Oh
but
yes.
McMaster is even deeper.
Oh,
Yeah, McMaster and Kemp are like
absolutely. And
they're
Glenn
doing the same thing.
Youngkin, he was down in our capital last week. All these secret breakaway Republicans are trying to break off and then turn the grassroots movement. It's the Saul Alinsky rule. They're trying to blame everybody else because we're disrupting the system.
Yeah, man, listen, they are taking their marching orders, the governors from the National Governors Association.
Hmm.
The National Governors Association. You can look this up online. I ask you to actually, all of anybody who watches this.
I'm writing it down.
2018, okay, they partnered with the World Economic Forum. They partnered for the fourth industrial revolution, and they released a release with fanfare. Yes, we are
Hmm.
doing this as the National Governors Association, and the NGA. They have certain arms for like infrastructure, economic revitalization, yada yada yada. And during COVID, it turned into COVID related stuff, but there's still arms of the NGA,
Right.
and the job of those arms is to help uh, determine the best policy concepts in Republican and Democrat areas to implement the will of the 9 member board of the NGA, who
Hmm.
has partnered with the World Economic Forum.
Wow.
I wish I could show you the stuff I've seen, but it's like called strategic intelligence and all of the DEI, ESG, electric vehicle, all
Hmm.
the garbage, all
Yeah,
that
the
stuff
Green
is
New Deal type stuff. Yeah,
all
it's
that
all
stuff is
tied in.
embedded
Mm.
in what they're getting as policy concepts that they need to get in place in order to get the money. If you don't get the honey, then you don't get the money.
Right. No,
So our governors,
absolutely.
they all want to get the money.
Well, I'm sure that you know a little bit about the famous fish fry last weekend. I mean, our governor and the secretary said they've all been outed. I mean, there's no doubt in most anyone's mind anymore who they're working for. But
Mm.
an interesting side note: not too long ago, I got to do a phone interview with Rankin County, or Rankin, Georgia, Effingham County, which is right outside of Savannah. They're having a huge problem right now with warehouses. They've got some pretty bad elected officials that have been in there for way too long, and it's all that they basically, like Effingham County and Rankin. They're like small suburbs of Savannah, the big port of Savannah, and these are like, we're talking about just small, very small communities with just older homes and people that have been living there for 50 years, and all of a sudden these contractors are buying up all this land, even if it's residential land, and they're putting these huge warehouses everywhere down
Huh.
there. The warehouses, I mean, some of these people were having, like, they would have natural ponds in their backyards. They were building warehouses right up on them and then forcing them to use their pond waters like water runoff and things. And it's gotten way out of control. And I'll send you some information on it too, just so you can see what it's about. But just recently, some information has dropped about, our governor's CCP ties and who he elected from the state boards. And those same people are the ones that are actually out of Savannah that are putting up the vast majority of these warehouses. And so you start to see these dots connected.
Interesting.
This is a huge push by China and the World Economic Forum right here in our state
Oh yeah,
you know, and our governor is right there with them. You know,
ushering it, stewarding it.
it's
I mean,
crazy.
our governor refused to help pass a bill, like to put his support behind a bill that would have reduced the amount of land that the CCP
Mm-hmm.
could purchase at one time in South Carolina.
Wow.
Just not that they couldn't purchase anything at all, but they couldn't purchase so many at one time.
Gotcha.
I mean, we're selling our farmland to foreigners.
Mm-hmm.
What are we thinking? I'm not a bigot like that. I mean, I think people should be able to move here and become citizens, right? But why are
Absolutely.
we selling our farmland to foreigners? I was talking to an Indian guy at a cigar shop, and he was like, "We don't do that. That's stupid. Why? I just left India
Mm-hmm.
to come here, and we have Americans selling our farmland. How are you going to make your clothes, your
Mm-hmm.
food? You're selling
Exactly.
your farmland to foreigners?" I'm like, "Yeah, couldn't have said
Ex-
it better myself."
exactly. It's really crazy. It's crazy how much land that Bill Gates owns, and it's crazy how much foreign land, farmland is being sold off. And well, I mean, you're talking about meat processing, you're talking about corn, you're talking about anything.
Yeah.
Other countries have their hands in it, you know. It's just,
And
it's a wild thing.
and then the America the Beautiful Act, whatever that Joe Biden's implemented now, they really want to buy 70 or 80% of the land in America, but they're
Hmm.
saying it's 50. They're starting with 50. So right now they own about 35.
Right.
They want to get to 50 as quickly as possible because they're trying to get to 80.
And meanwhile, every American company in China can only own up to 49% interest in their own board of directors. China has to own 51% and the proprietary software. So, I mean, you try that in another country and see if that's going to work. You know, it's crazy. So,
Americans have lost their minds because we allow these politicians to continue to be in office.
mm-hmm.
I mean, there's no reason. But I guess there is a reason. Like again, human nature.
Mm-hmm.
It's our nature. We really want to go back to being normal. We want to just go back to watching I Love Lucy and
Right.
just go to work 40 hours a week. But like we were talking about when I first met you, man, um, there's an illusion superimposed on our communities, and they've disconnected us. They've splintered us. They've
Yes.
atomized us.
Mm-hmm.
We don't even have in some areas communities like they used to have. They're building houses with the porch on the back, not the front. So
Mm-hmm.
people drive into their garage, they close the door behind them, they go in their backyard that's fenced in to be a king in the little kingdom.
Mm-hmm.
But back in the day, the porch is on the front.
Right.
And so you're like, hey, how's Tom? Oh,
You
Tom's doing
welcomed your
better.
neighbors. Yes.
Yeah,
Yes.
I heard he was sick. I'll bring you some food over. You know,
Absolutely.
we were able to trade food with each other in our communities, and so that's kind of what we've been trying to rebuild too, is that real community. And if the
Yes.
Republican Party could take up their duty to be Republicans,
Mm-hmm.
I don't mean just like party people, but what is the Republic supposed to look like?
Right.
How am I supposed to live in it?
Exactly.
It's like being a police officer. Well, it's not, don't just put a uniform on and go home and watch television with the remote control.
Right.
I have a job to do.
Mm-hmm.
How do I live in the Republic as somebody who is of the Republic?
Right.
What did it look like in the beginning? What am I supposed to do? Take care of widows and orphans in their distress, take care of your community, you're vulnerable,
Mm-hmm.
love on your neighbors.
Right.
That's a self-governing community. Getting together in our community and talking about what the problems are
Right.
so that we can get our electeds back under control.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. And again, they want to keep us divided racially. They want to keep us divided in class and all
Yeah.
of these things. And it's like we're so polarized now. We can't have an honest discussion. We can't talk to each other, because they want to keep us off in our own little groups, and it's just ripping the fabric of this society apart. It's so
Loving
sad.
your neighbor. Loving your neighbor. That's the key. Like
Yes, sir.
love never fails, right? That's what Jesus said. I
That's
mean,
right.
even if you're loving and somebody does something that's devastating, like Jesus, he got put on the cross, right? Still, the effect of his love
Mm-hmm.
reverberated through time because love never fails. And
Right.
so, what the Lord showed me is that as believers, if we just stop trying to convert people, I mean, granted, there's going to come moments where they're like, "What do I do to be saved?" We give them the gospel.
Mm-hmm.
But just loving our neighbor, taking care of our widows. Like we drive 5 miles past our widows to go do our love at a box called church. I'm not against churches,
Right.
but we drive past widows and orphans to go do it. Even in the Bible's day, an orphan wasn't somebody that didn't have both parents. An orphan was a fatherless child. If you look in the King James over and over, the fatherless, they're the most vulnerable
Right.
to becoming in gangs, sex slaves, just marauders, whatever. And so, if we, as the church and the Republicans, most of the Republicans say they're Christians,
Right.
if we would just take care of our widows
Hmm.
and our orphans in our 100 house area, the bulk of the people who are depending on the government when the poop hits the fan in their lives
Hmm.
would not have to turn to the government.
That's yeah, you nailed it right there. You're absolutely right. And you know, you've I've thought a lot about our conversations in the past. I always try to bring up community because community is so important to me, and networking because you build each other up, you know. And let me just tell you, man. Let me just tell you, this is crazy to me, and I'm not going to go into the whole detail, but you know, a lot of people around here are getting like death threats, and they're getting like some really nasty letters sent to them. And I had my own the other day where a good friend of mine who I played music with for a long time had let me know that because I liked their band, not my band, their band on their page, and I'd been to a couple shows, and some Chattanooga, you know, liberal or whatever you want to call it, who knows, Marxist. Anyway, had some sort of vendetta, so they actually tried to get their band canceled through me.
Wow,
Simply by just going through Facebook and like looking through and say, oh, this guy's a right wing extremist, and I was a racist, and I was tied to Proud Boys and all this stuff, and I'm like, and it was crazy. The whole thing was blown out of proportion, and they had to go and fix it. And I'm just like, are you kidding me? Like, I would sit down and break bread with anybody. I would never turn away a conversation. And that's how just cemented that we are. And if you disagree with somebody, if you don't think 100% like them, or you don't walk this line, then just get away from me. I don't want to talk to you. You're my enemy. And that's where we're at. And it's such a sad place to be in. But then you turn around and look at our government. That's exactly where they want us to be. They
well,
want us to be down here fighting.
man, that's why the loving, the hundred in our. Granted, it's difficult to cross the gap that you just kind of like expressed. Like you have friends that are over here and people over here in Chattanooga, and they're like, but in your 100 house area,
Yeah.
that reality doesn't exist.
No,
And
Lord, no.
so what we do is if all of us that are what they consider right wing extremists,
Hmm.
anti government, white supremacists, domestic terrorists, if we all made it our mission to love our neighbors with all of our heart, right? Just
Right.
take care of it as much as we can. Make sure the old lady's house, if her grass is devouring our house, we go cut it. Take some of the young people, pay them $20 to help us.
Mm-hmm.
Trade. We got food. I got extra vegetables. Just give them away. Trade with people for things. You know,
Yes.
just love on our neighbors. Take care of the vulnerable, right?
Mm-hmm.
Um, God forbid the poop hits the fan, but if it
Yes.
does, our 100 house area, the folks they will know
Mm-hmm.
that we are not who these other people say we
Exactly. Lead by
are.
example. Yes.
And because of that love, I mean, we're talking about now, if you're doing it in your area, it may not affect some of your friends, you know, that you're
Mm-hmm.
talking about. But if people in your friend's area or people in my area,
Mm-hmm.
like there's this butterfly effect.
Right. Right.
And so these old ladies are multi generational widows, right? They
Right.
have grandchildren and people they taught and family members that they are friends with all over the country.
Right.
Like when they're talking about these right wing extremists and yada yada, and they, oh no, you know, I don't know. Well, this young man, he's just the nicest young man.
Mm-hmm.
And if you're dealing with the young fatherless children, and the next generation now is getting influenced by your manhood,
Mm-hmm.
by your womanhood. Do you, if you have women that can help women become women, you know?
Right.
Well, I'm
Absolutely.
saying all that to say that there is a solution, but it's not an instant
Sure.
because they want us divided. The only way you overcome that is by aggressively taking care of the vulnerable because they will accept your help.
Yes. Absolutely. Um, and you bring up a good point. So give us some insight on, like, give us your 50,000 foot view. Like, you're in South Carolina. I'm over here. We're on the same page a lot. So how do things look for you? I mean, where do you see us in the future? Do you think, like, what? How do you think this election is going to turn out? Will we even have one? I mean, like, Where are we right now on that timeline of history? You know?
Yeah, I think the federal government has already collapsed financially. It's and the Lord showed us that a collapse is coming. I think we're in it.
Yeah.
Um, I do think we'll have an election. I think Republicans will take over.
Okay.
I think the challenge is going to be um, how you cut spending,
Right.
and I don't know that they're going to be able to.
Probably not.
And so that's a problem for conservatives because that'll make them lose some support. But what they need to focus on, and this is my the view, because if we can't curb spending, which we need to, we can't. If we can't, because we're on the economic collapse now,
Mm-hmm.
then we need to retract the administrative state. We need to
Absolutely.
begin to take the security state and reduce it, and bolster um, paths that lead to local law enforcement, state, county, um, being not emboldened, but strengthened, and also communities um, being able to keep the money that they earn
Right. Right.
and begin defending and creating defensible communities of their own.
Right.
Like if we're really reality Republicans and not um, normalcy bias Republicans or Stockholm syndrome Republicans, if we're really the reality Republicans, we'll realize that our states were supposed to be training the militia.
Right.
But
Absolutely.
the Dick Act made a separation between the militia that shouldn't exist, between the organized and the unorganized. And
Gotcha.
so, as reality Republicans, we need to be thinking of ways to like provide a tax credit to people who want to get trained that are
Mm-hmm.
in the unorganized militia because they should have been trained already.
Sure. And
They're
we've let
supposed to,
we've let
yeah.
law enforcement get too big, and now they think they don't need the militia. Now militia is that big dirty word, you know. It's crazy to me because it ties in with everything you're talking about community and love. And
Yeah.
you get people, good people, with good morals and values that are representing your community to stand up with you. All it can do is help strengthen. But we've got this police state now where everything's completely divided, and you're absolutely right. We need to get back to that. You know, I don't know how to make it an undirty word or
Well, we just got to look at the code. The code, it's in the code. I mean,
right.
it's in the U.S. code. You know, unorganized militia is a thing, and organized militia is a thing, right?
Mm-hmm.
The problem is that the state took advantage of the opportunity to get out of training all of the men in the community
Mm-hmm.
because the Dick Act enabled them to say, okay, so we'll train the organized militia and the unorganized militia. You don't have to come to training anymore.
Right. Huh.
And so now we don't have to make sure you're trained. So what we can do as reality Republicans is say, hey, you know what? We dropped our responsibility in our states.
Mm-hmm.
We were supposed to be training the entire militia, even though we do have an organized, we have an unorganized. That's fine.
Right.
If you're in the unorganized militia and you want to be trained, there are trainers who have given their information to your county sheriffs, so they're authorized. And
Right.
so if you go get trained through them in gun safety and
Mm-hmm.
tactical training, and you do it every year, maybe every quarter,
Right.
there is a non-refundable tax credit, so we can bring your tax debt down
Mm.
every year.
That's a
And
great
then we
idea.
can begin to restore this idea that our community is supposed to defend each other. Like
Right.
our founders, man, in the first two amendments, I believe they wanted to protect the two great commands. I think
Mm-hmm.
you might have heard this before.
Yeah.
But the first great command is love your Lord your God with all your heart, soul, mind, and strength, right? The First Amendment, you have the right to religion, you can practice your religion, free speech, you can preach, print a Bible, press, that wasn't just for people to write news that's lies.
Right.
It was a freedom to print a Bible. They were being put to death for that
Mm-hmm.
overseas, right?
Mm-hmm.
And you can live your conscience. And if your conscience led you to do something that got the government to violate you, then they have to listen to you.
Right.
You have a right to redress grievances. And the Second Amendment is like the second commandment to love your neighbor as yourself. If I
Right.
would call the police to help me or my family, God did not give some kind of clause saying that now nobody can call me because they're uniformed and I'm not. I become a hypocrite if I won't let somebody call me if
Right.
they need help.
Hmm.
So I should be armed for the defense of my neighbors. We
Yes.
should all be. The more that the good people are armed and trained, the better. I mean,
Right.
if you look at these communities that are run by pretty much Democrat policy concepts like gun control, they
Mm-hmm.
are the most just disastrously murderous. I mean,
Yes.
not even like just bad communities, but murderous communities.
Yes.
But where
Yes.
everybody's armed and trained, people go do stuff somewhere else.
Exactly. They absolutely. I mean, there has to be consequence for our actions, and it seems like we're breeding an entire culture where nobody will take responsibility for their actions. They want to blame it on something else, or we want to give them an SSRI or an excuse to
Yeah.
do whatever they want, and then all of a sudden you've got a bunch of depressed people that know better. But here we are in this crazy messed up culture that we have here. You know.
Depression,
It is.
depression, and it's all strategic. They really want us docile, lobotomized,
Yes.
atomized,
Uh-huh.
and dependent on government.
Absolutely. They
And
don't
so,
want you to be independent at all. You know,
no, if
everything
you're
we're
in your
talking about here is like kryptonite to the governments.
it's anti-government. That's what they're calling
Yeah,
it. If you're
yeah,
in your
we're
backyard,
extreme.
if you're in your backyard digging in the ground with your bare hands, barefoot, there's minerals that your body can absorb that you don't eat.
Exactly.
You know,
Uh-huh.
if there's fungus, there's things that's not fungus, whatever. There's stuff in the ground that we don't eat, right?
Right.
It's giving off. If we don't use Roundup and glyphosate and all that garbage,
Right.
they're going to be giving off proteins that we actually don't consume, that we don't create in our own bodies.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, the reason why we're so depressed and messed up as a community and everybody's drugged is because we're not living in reality anymore. We got
No.
this false reality, so we have to have something to help us maintain our false reality.
Yep. Amen. It's crazy. It's crazy. Well, where do you see yourself in South Carolina? Are you going to run again for lieutenant governor? Are you going to go all the way?
No, I was asked to run for a different position.
Okay.
Yeah, and I haven't, announced or anything yet. So
Gotcha.
as soon as I
Okay.
do, you'll be the first to know that I'm doing it. But
Awesome, man. Because I'm gonna
um,
tell you, we put a lot of time and effort. We were gonna do another one of these. I can promise you. So, but good. All I want to know is that you're moving forward because we need you. We need people like you up in there representing us all over this country. You know. But
I appreciate the encouragement,
I'm telling you, man. Like I said, I begged this man to move to our neck of the woods here so we can get him in. So,
man.
but
I don't know, MTG, she wouldn't like that too
well,
much.
yeah, I understand that. You know, Marjorie's a fighter. She's down in the trenches. Let's hope. You know, I don't know how you feel about the impeachment. You know, but I want to see this president impeached, just for the sole principle that there were two sham impeachments over. You
I
know,
got you.
the
Yeah.
the extent of a phone call and maybe an ice cream. That's how easy it was for them, and we're getting told that we don't have enough Republicans to stand up and impeach this president. So it's very mind-boggling to me. But
Well, again, there was no reason to impeach Trump, right?
no.
Because they don't have principles; they only have plans.
Hmm.
And so we have to have principles, and therefore we have a higher bar for everything.
Yes.
Sometimes it's to our detriment. Like it's the Bible says, "Don't be over righteous. Why would you destroy yourself?" Right? We are
Yes.
oftentimes over righteous.
No, it's true. It's true. We're always supposed to be the people that are standing on the line of the truth, justice, the American way, the Constitution, and we get pummeled for that because the other side they just don't care about any of that. They've got the power, the control. They're just gonna mow you down in order to do what they're gonna do. And honestly, I don't know if they're. I mean, if we talk about this time next year, Lord knows, we may be in full fledged war and not have an election. That's how crazy these people are.
I do think we're going to have elections because
I
I think
hope
they
so.
are just cocky enough to believe that they've got it under wraps.
Right, right.
Um, but I would say that we need to be prepared because a lot of our folks are on the verge of like balkanization. They've been blackpilled. I haven't. I don't even think we've even on a scale of A to Z. I think we're still on like L
Right.
because we're really like we have a learning disability as Republicans. We don't know even what our system is,
Hmm.
let alone how to fix it at this point. So we haven't even begun to fight
No,
as
you're
far as
right.
fixing the system.
You're right. You're right.
So, but we got to get the message to the folks that are in the Republican Party, and if we do that, then we can change things. If we don't, we're just rearranging the chairs in the Titanic by
Sure.
electing people. We're not gonna.
Sure.
We're just gonna fall apart. like I was saying, we're going to DC, right, at the end of this month.
Uh huh.
We're taking parent group leaders who were just labeled extremists by SPLC,
Oh Lord.
and we're taking some folks who actually were arrested, indefinitely detained for 2 years while they went to court, even imprisoned. But then one of them got exonerated,
Mm.
completely exonerated,
Wow.
because a whistleblower, a BLM whistleblower, came out and testified against all the Bureau of Land Management agents for what they did.
Wow.
And that testimony enabled him to get out of prison. But even though he's out of prison, he still is on ATF's list
Of
that he
course.
can't purchase a weapon, even though he's been acquitted with prejudice.
Mm.
And so there's all these issues that we're dealing with that we have to fix. And so no matter what, we better learn how to fix our system. We better get to work doing it.
Right.
Get trained, get a team, begin strategizing and figuring out ways to repair the republic.
Yeah, I agree. I agree. As I'm out here doing everything I can. I need to do more. We can only handle so much,
No,
but
so much, yeah.
what I tell people every little bit, don't ever think for a minute that just that one, even if the outcome is, it's not going to ultimately make that difference, but taking that time to make the click, to sign the petition, to make a phone call, to do anything, to support your local people, any little minute thing is doing something good and it's moving the ball forward.
Yeah, it's true.
Oh, I hope.
Definitely, though, definitely get trained.
Yes.
The Bible says something that I thought was pretty interesting. It says that, okay, you're the son of the king, right? Your dad is the master of the universe. But it says in that house, the master's house, the child is the son is no more than a servant in that house until it's fully trained.
Right.
So the reason why we're being treated like serfs, the reason why they're treating us like we're the servants and they're the masters in government, is because we haven't been fully trained. When we get fully trained, we will take the house.
Gotcha.
And we'll take it back.
Nice. Well, we're not going to take too much of time. We did get one stream chat tonight. It was from Jennifer Tudor, and she said, "Vic, Zoe Warren, long time no see, Patriot. Hope all is well." We do apologize this evening that we didn't get to start on time, but I think I learned a thing or two about all this, but
it's great.
I just really appreciate you doing this. This is my first one, and you were the first person I wanted to do this with, and I plan to do many more in the future and line up some people. But we believe in you, man. We're watching you, and we just thank you for everything you're doing. And I hope I no matter where you're at, I hope that you are a representative for our people.
Thanks for the encouragement, bro. I really appreciate you, man.
It's the truth.
Too, so.
It's the truth. But
Yeah.
I know this was a little unorthodox this evening, you guys. I won't be doing a live stream tomorrow night. We'll pick it back up next week. But we're gonna go ahead and hop off here, and I'm gonna let this man get to bed. So
Good night, guys.
thank you so much. Y'all have a